The Mellow series seems to be regular practice cymbals to the inexperienced eye. They resemble a colander blank in pre-production and are typically constructed of stainless steel with hundreds of tiny holes. The Mellow series, on the other hand, is produced by hand in Turkey from B20 bronze, the same alloy used to make more expensive, standard cymbals. However, the theory contends that by adapting the idea of mesh heads or practice cymbals to a material that we are used to hearing, we should get the advantages of bronze while experiencing a 30% decrease in loudness. The range is divided into 5 categories with many size possibilities in each: ride, crash, china, hi-hat, and splash cymbals. That includes rides that are 22 inches, 20 inches, or 18 inches, crashes that are 20 inches, 18 inches, 16 inches, and 14 inches, chinas that are 13 inches and 14 inches, and splash options that are 12 inches and 10 inches. Additionally, Zultan provides the Mellow series in 2 pre-configured sets, professional and jazz. Each of the aforementioned cymbals is also sold separately, with costs ranging from £96 for a 10 inches splash to £246 for a 22 inches ride. The large number of holes instantly reminds us of the practice cymbals we discussed before, so there's a potential preconception to go over there. The first thing you'll notice about the Mellow cymbals, aside from all the holes, is the rough finish on each cymbal's bow. The bells, in comparison, have a more expensive appearance since they have been brilliantly polished throughout the lathing process. Each cymbal has a distinct sonic motif that permeates it. Those gaps undoubtedly reduce each player's performance, thus our first blows result in a potent assault. Because of the B20 bronze, it sounds smoother than the plastic Y-clack that the Mellow's whole Y practicing relatives produce. We'd even go so far as to argue that the quicker decay and decrease in sustain have caused more of a perceived increase in the sound's assault portion. The ride cymbal, where bow strikes vanish before any wash has a chance to build up, is where this is most obvious. The downside of this is that it will function well for musical genres where you want to keep things quieter but still obtain superb note clarity, which it does in spades. If you need more sizzle, you may think about adding a chain. In light of this, it should also be noted that crashing the ride is typically dry. You must strike it rather hard in order for it to fully crash. The bell responds in the meanwhile as you would anticipate, keeping the same arid purity as the bow. Although there's really no need to, it is simple to manage and, of course, becomes rather loud if you hit it hard. Similar to the hi-hats, they have a certain vibe. When closed tightly, there is a loud chick sound, but it lacks some of the weight that is readily apparent. The semi-open and bark sounds follow, when conventional hi-hats may become grating and exhausting. The sound here, however, is far less conventional. It almost sounds like a hi-hat that has been aggressively EQ'd or filtered. The notes have a characteristic high-end crackle, and many of the frequencies that cause regular hats to become too loud have been scooped out. They have an electronic edge, so it wouldn't surprise us in the least if somebody used them as effects-style hi-hats. The crashes are the most recognizable. They still have a little amount of the filtered aspect but rise to a complete crash sound on their own, uninfluenced too much by our impacts. As expected at this point, there is a quick response, but harsher impacts do start to expose a trace of that white noise timbre. It is not as trashy as an effects cymbal. The most exciting cymbal is perhaps the china, which is one of the loudest and brastiest voices we have at our disposal in our standard cymbal palette, by definition as a cymbal often employed for accents and staccato crash. That makes perfect sense for metal musicians, but if you're searching for china sounds in a more subdued environment, you'll often need to turn to something a little thinner. But if you poke hundreds of holes in a china, you may be able to hear that throaty sound at lower decibels. That's essentially what's going on here. It's trashy but yet professional, and although the level is obviously noticeable, it's unquestionably a far more forgiving experience than our super bright, super loud typical china. The Mellow series accomplishes its goal by providing us with a usable cymbal sound that, although undoubtedly not traditional, isn't too far to the left. They don't sound like our unperforated metals or loud practice cymbals, either. They fall somewhere in the middle. These certainly accomplish their goal of lowering your cymbal loudness, and as we previously indicated, in certain situations they also provide a tone in their own right. The main negative is the possible cost. If you currently have an expensive set of cymbals, you'll likely need a compelling argument to convince yourself that you need a new set, unless you often perform in environments where louder cymbals are an issue. However, as each type is sold separately, you may decide to merely replace the louder of your regular cymbals and utilize the mellow as a backup when necessary. It depends on what, where, and how often you play. So guys, that was our review of Zultan Mellow Cymbals. Hope you liked it. Thanks for watching. See you in the next video.